Thank you so much to everybody who's joining us. I'm Dr. Leah Jeanette. I am the director of our Master's in Bioethics and Medical Humanities program here at Case Western Reserve University. I'm so thankful you can join us today for our webinar. I am joined by, as you can see from the title, Dr. Marsha Michie, and we're going to be talking about our research ethics concentration today. It's something that many students and prospective students are interested in. And we're going to talk about how that intersects both at the university and also in our program. So I'll go ahead and move us forward. So as I mentioned, I'm the director of our master's program. I'm also an alum of the master's program. So I did this program many years ago. And so it's nice to be now directing it. I'm also a clinical ethicist at University Hospitals, which is just next door to Case Western Reserve. Dr. Michie, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. You fill a couple of different roles, as many of us do in the Department of Bioethics.
I do. So I'm an associate professor here, and I do a fair amount of teaching. I do a fair amount of research, and service. And one of the things that I do educationally is I direct the research ethics concentration for our MA program. I also co-direct our PhD in bioethics, which is a smaller program, of course, for more advanced students. And in the research realm, I am the associate director of our Center for Community Health and Genomic Equity, or CHANGE. And that's where a lot of my research resides.
Thank you. So in terms of what we're going to cover, we're going to talk just a little bit about Case Western Reserve as a university and the School of Medicine, which is where we are located as a department. We'll go over the MA program and overview, but also discuss the research ethics kind of in general, and the concentration more specifically. At the end, we'll wrap up application process deadlines, things like student assistantship, financial aid, and we will leave time for Q&A. So speaking of Q&A, you can use the Q&A feature here on Zoom. You can either click on that little symbol or look for the ellipses, the three dots, and there should be a Q&A feature there. Feel free to submit your questions anytime during the presentation, and we will save them to the end to answer them as we start to wrap up. So we'll start with our Department of Bioethics is located in the School of Medicine. There's different rankings and ways schools at universities and universities themselves are evaluated. These are just some updated kind of things to think about. But more specifically, when it comes to these different numbers, this is in relation to the research that we are doing in the School of Medicine. So the School of Medicine is a very active, a research active school, in addition to doing a lot of education, both MD, physician assistant, anesthesiology, and I think 37 graduate, either master's or PhD programs. But in terms of our research, we are ranked very highly. Our NIH funding is significant. And so just it's important to highlight that. The other thing that can come with this is that we have great collaborations across the university. So we work with others in whether it be the law school or Weatherhead or College of Arts and Science or engineering, nursing. And we also collaborate with our colleagues at the different hospitals in Cleveland. And we will talk about the hospitals in a little bit, but all the hospitals here are teaching and research active, and so there's a lot of collaboration across the city, not just within our own department. So it's a really nice, well-rounded research portfolio. Dr. Michie, do you have anything you want to add about the research kind of at a high level?
Oh, I think that it's there's great research going on at the School of Medicine and of course across Case Western. There's great research going on in the Department of Bioethics. So my research collaborations span the hospital, several of the hospital systems here in the Cleveland area, across the campus to other schools and other departments. And there's a lot of encouragement for that here, which is great. It gives also students opportunities to work with faculty that are not just in our department.
Absolutely. So one of the questions that often comes up is why study bioethics and medical humanities, and including in that things like research ethics. One of the things we think about is that healthcare impacts us, whether it's personal, whether it's professional, whether it's something that we're interested in exploring more. And part of that is because we see constant advancements in medicine, science, technology, and research, and it leads to big questions. Some of these questions can include things like, should we intervene, or even can we intervene? Or what does it mean to intervene? What kind of values should inform policy and practice? Dr. Mickey, I know you do this a lot in the research that you're conducting, is thinking about what it's like for patients, what it's like in the hospital, but then how does that translate into policy or practice? Um, Another big question that comes up is, can we and should we ensure justice and respect for persons in research and clinical practice? These are not the only questions, but these are some pretty significant ones that are kind of easy to identify, but can be very challenging to address. So that being said, to kind of build off of that, there are specific ethical issues that come up in things like biomedical research, regulations. Um, I often phrase it as like the ethics of research, but also the ethics in research. Dr. Mickey, do you want to just add to like why do these things matter? Why does thinking about the ethical issues matter when we're doing research?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, of course, why they matter. One is that we have certain regulations, and they're based on ethical principles. They're based on a history of bioethics scholarship and debate and regulation. And keeping to those regulations keeps participants safe. It keeps our science rigorous, and it also keeps us from losing access to resources that we would get if we were rule breakers. But in a larger sense, certainly uh, unethical research um, disrupts the kind of trust that we work so hard to build with the general public, with particular communities that we do research with healthcare providers that we might partner with in our research. There's all kinds of reasons why you want to build and maintain those relationships of trust. They're just super duper important. And speaking about not just the ethics in research, which is, I think, what we're talking about right now, but the ethics of research. What I work a lot on in my own work is how we translate discoveries that might happen in the lab all the way through that whole process of human trials and whatnot, all the way to clinical care and in fact public health. And there's ethics built into that whole process. And when we leave that out, or we think, oh, we can just leave that to later, then we end up with innovations that not only aren't the most ethically and socially appropriate ones, but they're ones that the people that might be the best end users of it will very likely reject. And so there's economic costs to it too, as a matter of fact. So that we make these arguments all the time, but I think those are lots of great reasons.
Thank you so much. So ultimately, when we're thinking about these things, these questions that we bring up, these concerns that we have, these ethical issues that we identify, how does it assist a student's career path? Why is, like, right, we talked about why it's important to study it, but how is it going to help with an end goal, right? Because that's, I think, where the rubber meets the road for a lot of this, for at least from the student perspective. Bioethics and medical humanities, it's incredibly interprofessional, it's multidisciplinary. And we see students coming to our program seeking specific goals, and along the way, they have many goals that they want to achieve, and they want to add additional skills to their and knowledge to their repository. Um, Ultimately, we are able to launch students into a myriad of careers, which I think goes back to this idea that we are interprofessional and multidisciplinary. We consistently have students every year who go into the research space, whether it's going on to earn a PhD in some type of hard science or bench research, biomedical science, or they're joining research teams already in progress. And so having this knowledge base, having this um, background can be really valuable. We also see individuals go into clinical or legal professions, and understanding research again is important into these things. If your physician or your physician assistant is recommending enrolling in a research protocol, you want to know that they understand the ethics of research, of what they're saying, of the informed consent process. Um, we also see this with students looking to go into bioethics or other areas of academia. And also, there's a significant number of students every year who are looking for discernment. So they have an idea of what they're interested in, what they're passionate about, what they're good at, but it's not 100% clear of how that interprets to a career. And so we're able to work with students through this world of bioethics and medical humanities as they work through the discernment process. So just to keep moving us forward, our Masters of Arts in Bioethics and Medical Humanities program, we will be celebrating our 30th year this upcoming fall, which is incredible. Most students complete the program full time, so it's 1 year or 2 semesters. So they start in August, they graduate in May. Although we do have students who sometimes do the following summer as well, so 3 semesters. We also have part-time students who may finish the program in 2 or 3 years, while either working full-time or part-time or doing it in addition to other roles that they have. The curriculum itself is 30 credits, and we really are intentional about how we customize it. So while approximately half of the courses are the required core courses, we do have a lot of flexibility for electives. Our electives can range from things like research ethics and regulations, which we'll talk about that course in a moment, to areas more focused on the medical humanities side, so foundations of medicine, society, and culture. But then we also have really great courses like neuroethics or genetics and genomics or disability bioethics or philosophy of medicine. These are really interesting kind of courses that can help round out the education. One of the big hallmarks of our program that we are very proud of, and it's not seen in other programs across the country, and that's 160 hours of clinical ethics rotations. At minimum, students are doing 80 hours, and for the students who do a second semester, it's 160. And we have short-term study abroad courses as well. These are 3 credit electives students can take over spring break or in May, and they get to actually travel to another place and learn about ethical issues, bioethics, medical humanities issues in a cross-cultural comparison way. We have personalized advising for each student. So each student is assigned an academic advisor that has a similar interest to that student to help guide them as they choose their electives, as they think about career goals, that kind of thing. And then lastly, we do have dual degree options. If you're interested in learning more about dual degree options, just contact us directly and we can talk more about the details of that. So this slide can be a little overwhelming, but I like to still highlight it. So what I think is important to recognize, again, is this talking about the customization. So by default, everyone is in that first column, which we call traditional. What it means is there's the courses that run across foundations, clinical ethics rotations, foundations 2, and the capstone. All students are going to complete those courses. But then as you move down, you can see that in the traditional program, there's different elective slots that students can choose. If you end up going with a concentration, some of your electives will be required as part of your concentration. So if we go to the last column where we're looking at the research ethics, your elective number 1 will be a course called Research Ethics and Regulations. Um, and so you can see kind of the side-by-side comparison of these. And again, there's a lot of flexibility. And you don't have to be exclusively in a concentration in order to take one of these courses. So we have students who are in the research ethics concentration, but they still take um, the health policy core required course because it's an interest of theirs. So Dr. Michie, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of the concentration and the structure of it in more detail?
Sure. So you can see that instead of just picking an elective from a longer list, that one of the things we require is a couple of courses that are specific to research ethics. One of them is the Research Ethics and Regulation Core course, and one of the things I really love about this course is it is typically team taught, not every year, but typically it's team taught between somebody from more of the regulatory side and somebody from more of the ethics side because they intersect, but they're not exactly the same. And you get this interesting set of perspectives and, of course, lots of great guest speakers. The Journal Club I lead, and that's actually a student driven course. We the research ethics and regulation core course is intended to give you this nice baseline, and we do this in foundations too, like the foundations of research ethics, the foundations, foundational readings, the core kinds of scholarship that you need to know. You need to know about these events, these authors, these scholars. Journal Club's completely different. We're interested in what's happening right now. Like, is there a change that happened last month that makes a difference for research ethics? Is there something that's happened in the last couple of years that is really interesting? A clinical trial that had trouble, all kinds of interesting things like that. And students choose an article. I help them, and then they lead a discussion on it. And we have terrific discussions on a huge range of things. So that's fun. And it's not intended to be a course that's a whole lot of outside work. It's you read an article and you come and you have a great discussion. Then we ask that your other electives be at least somewhat related to research ethics, and really most of our other electives in the department are, and sometimes people will take a course from outside the department that's related. And then instead of your second semester of clinical ethics rotations, your second 80 hours of that, you take that time and put it towards a research ethics practicum, and that's individually guided by a faculty member, somebody who helps find you an opportunity that's related to what you're interested in. And then you'll work maybe with another person on their work. Sometimes you'll have a deliverable, like an article that you could publish. Sometimes you might have something that's a report that helps you work through something that you were thinking about on your way to your next step in your career. But it's very much individualized to you.
Thank you. I love hearing the practicum projects that students end up with. It's always super
They're
interesting.
so cool. Yeah.
All right, so I think so. One of the things I think that's helpful to kind of think about is the there's as was I'm going to go back one slide. As was talked about, there's right this foundational course, research ethics and regulations, and then there's journal club, which really gets you kind of into the current issues. This next slide is just highlighting some of the things that has been discussed in journal club, and also some of the research that's being done across our department and university.
Yeah, the range of topics we discuss in Journal Club is just so huge. And every year I think, well, we'll just probably cover stuff that I've already done before. And every year the students surprise me and come up with something really new and different. And it's just wonderful. So gene edited babies, that's something that I actually work on. Brain organoid research. We had a former faculty member who worked on that, and he actually came and talked to students about his work in that class. I work a lot in reproductive ethics, so fetal tissue research has come up quite a lot, although I didn't pick this article, somebody else did. And then this was one that I hadn't thought about. This particular article that they chose for free choice, the free choice thing was about whether we're actually denying prisoners opportunity to get the benefits of participating in research if we restrict them too much in the name of safety or vulnerability. A lot of people, of course, worried about social media research and GMOs, genetically modified organisms, um, community engaged homelessness research. Like, and I just wouldn't have even thought to make that a topic, but we found a great article on it. Our students did, and we had a really super important discussion about that. And we're continuing to do that this semester. We've had terrific discussions, and we're having another one in a couple of weeks. So we invite everybody from the Case Western community to come. So sometimes we have people from other departments visit with us, and students from other parts of the university, and it's a lot of fun.
So I'm going to pivot us just a little bit. I mentioned earlier that we also have something called clinical ethics rotations. So this is done usually the first semester if you're a one-year student. And then, as was mentioned, in the second semester, you replace it with the research ethics practicum. But our clinical ethics rotations are fantastic. We have four major teaching hospitals here in Cleveland: University Hospital, Cleveland Clinic, Metro Health, and the Cleveland VA. Um, What's great about these is you are seeing patients, you're seeing policy work, you're seeing committees, and you're going one-on-one. So there's a variety of things that you get to see. And even things from the research perspective are observed in the clinical rotations. So, for instance, students are required to attend at least one institutional review board meeting. This is the board that approves research and checks in on research and ensures things like informed consent are followed. And they discuss the ethics and the legality. Students can also attend things like the animal research, IUCOOK, board meetings, things like transplant selection, right? So there's a lot of things that can be research focused, even within this clinical ethics rotations for students. Our students are very consistent in telling us this is one of the favorite things about the program because it focuses both on depth and breadth. And in a way to help students process their experiences and to think about the ethics that they're seeing, the students do get together on a weekly basis with a clinical ethicist or an ethics committee member from that hospital. And they talk about what they've observed that week, what they experienced, what concerns they have, what questions, and they really are able to kind of process and work through real patients, real cases, real policies. Yeah. So I know we're getting towards the end. If you're interested in applying to the master's program, we do have an online application. We ask for unofficial transcripts from any undergrad or graduate institution, your resume or CV, 2 letters of recommendation, your statement of purpose. I think what's great about the statement of purpose is it's a great place for students to say, or applicants to say, I think I'm interested in research ethics. I think I'm interested in this concentration. You don't have to know when you write your statement of purpose, but sometimes by writing it, it helps you think through why are you interested in this program? How are you hoping to utilize a program like this in your career path? And that can include things like exploring research ethics. If you're an international student, we do have some additional requirements. And if you're a current case undergrad hoping to do what's called our CBM program, there is a PPOS form that also needs to be completed. In terms of financial aid, this question comes up quite often. We have something called student assistantships. I will say these are highly competitive. We probably get double or triple the number of applications compared to the number of slots we can offer. But in this role, students are able to assist with teaching, research, or administrative opportunities. And in exchange, students receive a partial tuition waiver. Usually it's around $6,000, and it can be as much as a quarter of tuition split over the 2 semesters. And students really love this. I will say, even if you're not chosen for a student assistantship, there's still opportunities to get involved with research. And so we have students simply just raise their hand or ask a faculty if there's a way they can get involved, join a project, or sometimes a project is newly launching during the year and they're looking for students to join. Dr. Mickey, what has your experience been with students in
Oh,
terms
it's
of
been so great
research?
to have students on projects. They bring so much energy. And I'll just give you an example. So we have a student this year who's really interested in gene editing. He's just really, really interested in it. And from the beginning, he told us that he was. He sought me out because he knew I do some work on that. And so I don't even think he has a student assistantship, or maybe he does. I'm not even sure. Well, I think we worked that out through someone else. But we put him on the protocol for a study that we have so that he could look at the actual information from the study. You have to be on the IRB protocol to do that. And he's now doing some work that has to be done, that a human being has to do it, which is de-identifying transcripts, taking all the identifiable information out of interview transcripts. But what that means is that he gets to read interview after interview with individuals who either have a genetic condition or have a family member with a genetic condition who are thinking through the ethics of gene editing for that genetic condition, which is exactly what he wants to study. And it's data that's never been published. It's brand new. And he gets the benefit of that in ways that he couldn't possibly if he weren't part of that study. And he's having a blast. And we're enjoying having him on there. It's a benefit for us. It's a benefit for him. It's a win-win.
That's great. That's such a great example. If you're interested in learning more about financial aid, we have a great financial aid office here at Case Western Reserve. And you can also look at tuition and fee information through Grad Studies, who sets all that information. In terms of timeline, so we are currently taking applications for this upcoming fall. If you are a current CASE undergrad hoping to do our combined bachelor's and master's program, your deadline is this Saturday, March 1st. So just a few days left. please send me an email and I'll show the email address at the end because we need to meet before you submit your application to make sure that everything's all set, both on the bachelor's side and for the master's program. Um, for everyone else, our next deadline is May 15th. We call this our Priority 2 deadline. If you are interested in applying for our student assistantship program, you are required to submit your master's application by May 15th. When you submit your application within 24 hours, you will automatically receive an email and it'll send you the link to apply to our student assistantships. That deadline is then June 1st. If you are still trying to figure out what's next for you, but you're still interested in the program, we will take applications all the way up until August 1st. And the program is in person and we start at the end of August. So usually, um, we've got students who are submitting in July and it's a quick turnaround and we're happy to do that. But then they have to sometimes quickly move to Cleveland. So make sure you're giving yourself enough time as you're making decisions regarding admission. Oh, the other thing I'll mention is we do rolling admission. So as they come in, when we have a completed application, it takes us about 2 to 3 weeks to render a decision, including interviewing you. So it's a pretty quick process. I'm going to open us up for questions. I'm not seeing any submitted right now, but Dr. Michie, I want to ask you a question because we get this pretty consistently. Um, what do you think is one of the reasons that students choose the research ethics concentration?
I think oftentimes it's because a student, so often now undergraduates have the opportunity to be in a research lab or in a clinical situation and be a research assistant in some way. And so often they start thinking about the bigger picture. What are the ethics issues that could come up in the kinds of research that I'm doing? Who am I helping? What kinds of burdens are we placing on people with research? And oftentimes, those are the kinds of questions that people come with when they want to do the research ethics concentration. There are also people who may know that they want to go into a research career and they really want to think about that. And also, there are people who know they want to go into a clinical career, but they know that research is probably going to be part of that too, and they I'll tell you that their future institution finds that extra training very, very valuable. That means that you might be one of the people to get tapped to sit on an IRB. You might be one of the people who's tapped to help out with research ethics consultation when it's needed. And in addition to your professional degree, clinical degree, whatever other kind of degree that you have, that gives you that in to be able to be part of those conversations if that's where you want to be and where you want to make your impact.
That's great. Thank you so much. Um, okay. Oh, this is a great question. Does research ethics also investigate research access for disadvantaged communities?
Absolutely. We do this all the time. And you can tell, I mentioned that I'm associate director for the Center for Community Health and Genomic Equity. And most of my research is around genomics, but in all research, we worry about whether research A is accessible to communities that want access, and B, whether it's burdening communities unnecessarily. And we do a lot of this. I was telling you about the transcripts that our student is reading from people with genetic conditions. And this is the very first research, as far as we know in the US, that's been done to think about prenatal gene editing and to actually ask the people with those conditions that might be targeted what they think about it. And we've been saying for years this needs to be done, but it's not always easy to do community engagement, and we're working very hard on it. We have another faculty member who's working very hard on community engagement um, about newborn screening and research that takes place with newborn screening blood spots that are retained by state public health departments. And I was literally just at a meeting this morning with community health workers, birth workers, midwives, lactation consultants, to find out what they thought was important for their clients and patients to know about newborn screening and research that's done with newborn screening blood spots. And we had the most amazing conversation. It was just really energizing to hear that. So that's a concern we have all the time.
Yeah, and I will say, as someone who's um, a little bit outside that research space that Dr. Mickey is talking about, um, when we hear updates on what's the Center for Change is doing, it's so always included is this community angle, right? So that there's this like piece, whether it's in the forefront of the research or it's um, a consideration as they're going along. It's something that's always being highlighted, and I think it's really important.
I'll also say that if you're somebody who's interested in those issues, if you go to our website, you can find the Center for Change, Community Health and Genomic Equity, on the Bioethics Department website. And every year we have a Patricia Marshall lecture in genomic equity. And we've had three of them so far because we're a fairly new organization. And all three of those lectures have been unbelievable, just really phenomenal. And they're all recorded and they're all up on the website if you want to hear what some of these amazing folks that have come to speak to us have talked about. You will love it. It's there. I'm bowled over every time I take a look at one of those.
Yeah. So for the sake of time, I think I'll move us forward. So if you're interested, oh, we got one more question. Oh, it's just saying thank you. Um, if you're interested in learning more, please email us, bioethics@case.edu. I am the person who checks that email very consistently. If you have questions about the master's program, research ethics, anything that we've talked about today, or something that we maybe have missed that you were hoping to learn, please email us and either I can respond or I can connect you with the right people to respond. One of the things that I do quite often is I meet with prospective students. So if you're a little unsure if this program is the right fit for you or how do my goals line up with the master's program, I'm happy to meet with you on Zoom to talk this through of your interest and how we might come alongside that. We'll have other webinars that you can also join. Sometimes we get students and prospective students who come and schedule a visit. And so we can look to do that as well. I want to thank everyone who's attended today and those who are watching the recording online. We appreciate it. Again, please feel free to reach out to us, bioethics@case.edu. I hope you consider submitting an application and joining us this fall. It's a great program, and we have a lot to offer students. Dr. Michie, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate your time and your insight into research ethics and our concentration.
Thanks for inviting me, and I'm also happy to talk to students who are interested in this topic. As you can tell, I get really excited about it, and I'd love to have a conversation with you.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We hope you have a good day.